to them as kind of as soon as we can. If we wait for them to the end, then we'll do them at the end. If we do them during the time, Misha will try and stop me. Misha is the moderator for today. I am your presenter. My name is Eric Buenrostro. So, like I said, welcome, and let's get started. So, I'm going to go ahead and share my Google screen, my Google Drive screen. You should be able to see that now. Misha, will you verify?
Yes.
Awesome. Those of you that are worrying about attendance, don't even have to worry. We have the attendance running in the background. Don't even have to type in the chat. But thank you for doing that. Greatly appreciate it. So as you can see, this is Google Drive. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving this training in such a way where if you want to click away and follow along on your own Google Drive, you can. I'm going to be voicing everything that I'm doing so that if you want to participate, you can. Or if you want to just watch what I'm doing, you can do that as well. Whatever you feel more comfortable with. So if you all would go to, if you are going to participate with me, I've gone ahead and gone to drive.google.com, or if you're in the Google Apps Launcher, you're going to see that as kind of like the triangle made up of different colors. And so you end up here. When you first go into Google Drive, most of you already are familiar with this, or you may or may not be familiar that you have what's called priority. So in priority in Google Drive, to your top left is a section in Google that automatically is created for you. So what this is that it basically Google picks up your habits. And so in the top middle, you have a banner of the things that are most recently accessed or most popularly accessed by you. So if you notice, one of the things that you'll see here, I'm currently looking at my teacher remote learning survey. It's a form here. And one of the things that it tells me is that it was edited in the past week by one of the users it's shared with. And the reason it pops up in my priorities is because I access it almost every day. And so it'll learn pickup habits. So for example, the YSD Summer 2020 HE brochure, which most of you are familiar with, I access this pretty much every couple of hours to make changes. So it's in one of my more priorities. So that's what the priority up at the top is. Now, some of you may or may not be familiar with what's called workspaces. So workspaces, which is towards the middle of your priority page, is a container that you can create that will allow you to put different files from your shared with me, from your My Drive, from your shared drive, into a container that you specified so that you can quickly get to those files. Now, what do I mean by that? So for example, I'm going to create a workspace here. So I'm clicking the button that says Create next to Workspaces. And I'm going to call this Training Documents. It's spelled Documents correctly. And I'm going to hit the blue Create button. And so you notice that on my screen in the middle, I now have a new box, and now it's popped up a box that says Training Documents in the middle. What this is it'll allow you to add those documents. Now, there is a 25 file limit for these containers because they're meant to be quick access. So I'm going to go ahead and add a file here. If you notice, it's opened up the Add to Workspace up on the right side. It's added up a navigation container. But you'll see that I have access to my recent, which is essentially everything I've used or opened in the past 24 hours. It has access to my entire drive, so my personal drive. And in the third tab, you'll also notice that I have access to shared drives. So what this means is that you're basically picking and choosing bits and pieces from all over everything that you have access to. Now, it's not a folder that is like, for example, stored in your My Drive, or it's not a folder that's shared in shared drive. It's things you already have access to, just curated into one location. So I'm going to, for example, pick something from My Drive. I'm going to pick... for example, from the HE. Oh, wrong place. I'm going to pick, for example, I'm just going to pick up this flyer right here. I'm going to insert it. So you'll see that I now have this file. It's in the middle of the screen, and it gives you the file that I've added. I'm also going to add another one for my shared drive, so you can see that you can actually add from more than one place. So I'll go in here, and I believe I have some logos in here. So I'll add a logo. We'll do the Teachnology. And so if you notice, I've now added something from my shared drive and my drive. And so now in this space, I can click on these and have access to files that are both in shared drive and my drive. And they haven't moved. They haven't gone anywhere. They haven't moved location. You haven't shared anything. Nothing like that has changed. It's simply a workspace container for you to have a lot faster access than having to navigate your Google Drive or your shared drive every single time. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions so far, Misha?
Nope, no questions yet.
Awesome. And so you'll see you can also click on the View Workspace button, which is at the bottom of that every individual container, and you can see all of your documents in a list instead of seeing them in the small workspace container.
And there's a 25 file limit to
That
these?
is correct. There's a
Okay.
25 file limit to each container. You can create as many containers as you want. So if you want like part 1 container and part 2 container, you can do that.
Got it.
But there is 25 file limits to each. You can also, of course, delete stuff from your container. You can remove from workspace. It doesn't mean you're deleting the file. If you're clicking remove from workspace, it simply means you're getting rid of it from that little container that you've created for yourself. Yep, it's a container to keep work that you're presently working on. Absolutely. So if you notice, I work very closely with guidance and counseling, and I work on some calendars. So I have this as one of my containers in the workspace that I access very frequently. I also am the project manager for Engage Me, so I can put files in there that I'm working on at that point in time, whether it's inventory or finances or whatever it is. But for example, if you wanted to create it for, let's say, summer, you're starting to already develop lesson plans, or you're digitizing a lot of your stuff in anticipation of the next school year, you can create yourself a container that's in progress and maybe completed, so you already have those options. Or if you're creating some quick resources for yourself, there's a lot of power behind these workspaces if you kind of work to use them in that format. If you notice, right under workspaces in the same center, there is a button that says hidden workspaces. You can actually hide one of the ones that's in the workspaces. You can choose to hide it so that it pops up in hidden workspaces instead of up here. So if you already have a lot of workspaces, you can hide them and delete them and move them around. So now going into the actual My Drive, one of the things that was in the description of this session was file conversions and what does Google Drive do and accept in terms of what can go in a Google Drive. Before I get to that, there's a couple of things I'd like to mention. So number one, when you go into your Google Drive, if you're in there, you have two different types of views. One is my view, where I have all of my folders up on the top in little rectangles, and then I have all of my individual files towards the bottom. The other view, which can be triggered by going to the top right under your icon, there is like what looks like a list view if you hover over it. You can change the view into a complete list where it lists everything by title instead of going into individual folder archives. This is your personal preference. You can choose this however you want. This is one of your personal changes. So if you change it once, it'll remember that and it'll be this way. And you can always go back and forth and change it. It's always in the top right. If you have it as a list, it looks kind of like 6 squares put together. If you have it as a list, it'll look kind of like a bullet points with lines. So top right. When you look at this, so then of course, like I said, all your folders are in alphabetical order. If you choose to have them that way, you can have them ordered by name, by the owner, by the last modification date, which means whoever either put something in there or modified the name of the file or the folder or something like that. And then of course, you do have file size as well. Not that it matters too much for you all. Sorry about the noise. I'm in the building right now, so there's some background noise back there. But the reason I say that the file size doesn't really matter for you is because by being part of the district and using these EDU accounts, you have absolutely unlimited space in your Google Drive. You will never cap out, ever. So if you notice, I'm at 44.4 gigabytes. That's not a lot. But you have 100% unlimited space in your Google Drive. So if you wanted to upload all of your files in there, you absolutely could. You will never have a capacity storage. It'll always tell you how much you spent, and that is in the left-hand side towards the bottom of that column. But you will never cap out. So don't be afraid to put files in there and think, oh my goodness, I'm going to run out. That is not the case with us. If you have a personal Gmail and you use your Google Drive in your personal Gmail, you may have noticed you have 15 gigabytes limit. That doesn't exist here. So if you ever see a limit down there, that means you're not in your EDU account. Another good way to know that you're not in your EDU account is on the top right, you won't see the Isleta ISD logo. If you don't see that logo, that means you're not in your EDU account. It is very good to know. One of the things that we've come across in supporting remote learning is that there's a lot of teachers who have personal accounts on their computer, which is completely okay, but they haven't switched back and forth, or they haven't learned the concept of switching back and forth in their accounts. And so what happens is that they try and go into stuff using their personal account instead of their district account. And so that causes a little bit of conflict. But this is Google Drive in its basis. Now, in terms of what can go in a Google Drive, we've gotten that question a lot. Obviously, when you go and press the new button, which is up on the top left, you'll see that you can create Google Docs and Google Sheets and slides. And if you click on more, you can also create forms and drawings. So basically all of the Google things you can create. So all of those can for sure go into Google Drive because that's where they're stored. So by default, if most of you know, you don't press save when you're doing something in Google. And that's because everything is saved right here. But what you can also store in your Google Drive is files of any other type. You can put MP3s, you can put WAV files, you can put MP4 video files, Word files, Excel files, PowerPoint files. You can even put programs in there if you want to put an exe and move that around. You can do pictures, absolutely. You can definitely do JPEGs. How many years will it hold? It'll hold your entire lifetime of you being here in the district. We do not archive necessarily in terms of like your data. If you are an active employee in the district, you have your data. We will never archive it. The only time it goes into archival and then eventual deletion is when you either retire or resign from the district. If you do that, then your account is removed. That's the only.
I have a question about Apple files. Can I upload Apple files?
Absolutely. So right now I am on my Apple device. So if I wanted to create a Pages file, if you're in elementary or middle schools, you have an Apple device, you can even upload .pages files or Keynote files in there. And then so you can access them on a different computer or just save them there for safekeeping. You absolutely can. There is no real limit on what file types you can upload. There are a few every once in a while that Google may scan and say, wait a minute, there's a problem. But really 99.9% of the time for the files that you'll be using, you'll never run across any issues on our Google Drive. So that's something really good to know. So again, going back into my drive. So I'm looking in my drive right now. I'm looking at the middle container where all of my documents are kept. If you notice, I have quite a few folders and some of them are color-coded. So one of the things that I'd like to introduce you all, if you haven't been familiar with this yet, is color coding. So I'm not sure how many, some of you have your camera on. For those of you that do, if you would just tell me, how many of you have used color coding in Google Drive? Give me a thumbs up and if you have your cameras on. So I'm seeing more no's than yeses. Mm-hmm. That's good to know. So were you aware that color coded existing in Google Drive? Most of them are saying no. All right, so I'm going to show you something really cool then. Let's take, for example, this folder right here. Called Branding Resources. That is just a folder that I have in my Google Drive. And if you're following along, create a folder. You can do that by pressing New on the top left. And you can press New, and then the first option is Folder. So if you're following along with me verbally and doing it on your own, you can create a new folder. You can title it whatever you like. So I'm going to call it Training Folder and create it. Now I have a folder again in my Google Drive. I'm going to right-click it. Where it says for the title of that folder, and you'll notice you get quite a few options. So you do have open with, which we'll talk about a little bit. You do have the ability to share. So sharing is something that obviously we do a lot in Google, and I'll kind of touch upon it a little bit, but there's really other sessions that focus on that. Mm-hmm. There's also shareable links, which again is about sharing. There's add a shortcut to Drive, which we'll talk about what that means in a little bit as well, because not everybody has this button. Move to, meaning if you want to move things around in your Google Drive, which we'll talk about what that looks like again in a bit. There's add to start, which we'll talk about now as well, and then rename and change color, because these kind of go all together. So when you add to start, there's, aside from workspaces, there's also another container that's supposed to be meant for quick access. So if I add something to start, if you look on the left side of your Google Drive, you have a column, and one of those and in that column, if you look under recent, you have one that's called start. And so if you start something, it's meant to also be a quick access location for your documents or your folders. You can put documents or you can put folders in here. So again, I noticed I'm the project manager for Engage Me, so one of my quick access is my whole project folder. You can have, and there's my training folder, which I just finished starting. You can have anything from a shared drive to not a shared drive or files in there to folders, whatever you prefer. All of that can be put in start. So that's another place where you can find quick access files. But going back into my drive, and I'm going to go back into my training folder here. I'm going to go find it real quick. Correct. So if you wanted to remove something from start, so if you look at my drive right now, if you start something, you'll notice there's a little star that pops up next to the name. If I simply wanted to remove it from start, I would right-click it again, and then you would just remove from start. You would not remove, you would remove from starred. That's a very important distinction.
What happens if I hit remove?
So if you do hit remove, it is sent to the trash, which can be found right here on the left-hand side. Something to note, if you do accidentally trash something, which does happen to all of us, I won't deny it happens to me, you can click in your trash, and you'll notice a whole bunch of different things. You can click on whatever file or folder you've trashed, and then if you right-click it, you can restore it. You only have this option, for the most part, for 30 to 45 days, depending on some other factors. But you have 30 to 45 days to recover stuff from your trash without it disappearing forever. In some cases, it may be there for a little longer. It really depends on a couple of different settings we have in the district and where you are. But for the most part, you have 30 to 45 days to recover trashed files. So if you accidentally trash something, there is a way to get it back. I'm going to restore this folder. And if you see, it disappears from my trash, and now I'm going to go back to my drive, and it should be back in my drive. Scrolling down in the middle, and there it is. So again, we've looked at workspaces, which is a quick and easy way to list all of your files. We've looked at starred, which is another way to look at your files. If you're more of a color-oriented person or a visual person in terms of organization, you can right-click the folder, once again, and there is an option towards the middle called Change Color. And what you can do here is now you have a 4 by 6, so you have 24 color options in here. Well, you can click on any one of these, and so I'm going to click like this orange one. And so now this folder gets color-coded to orange, or whatever color you selected. And this helps quite a bit, because if you notice, they do stand out a little bit more than your grays. So if you're quickly looking for one of your colored options, it's a lot faster to scroll through the colored options than it is to the gray ones. So if you're more of a color-oriented person, highly suggest that. Now, you cannot do color coding with files, individual file types. I will specify that. You can only do this with folders, because folders could contain lots of different files. But your documents cannot be specifically color coded. So if you notice, I'm going to right click on one of these. I no longer have the ability to do the coloring. Alrighty, everybody. Any questions on that so far?
Nope.
I don't think I see anything. All right.
We're good.
So before I get into the file conversion, I'm going to show you 2 more things within just like the what is Google Drive, and then we'll talk about some of the other things that you can do in Google Drive to do file types, to do searching, to do some cleanup. I'll show you all of that in a bit. So we focused a lot on my drive, which, by the way, if you're following along with me verbally, or if you're looking at my screen, on the left-hand side of Google Drive, in the column, there is a little arrow you will see right next to where it says My Drive. If you click on that, you actually will see your entire Google Drive navigation pop up. This is another place for you to very quickly access your navigation. If it takes a while to load, it's because you have a lot of files. Don't be afraid. It'll take some time sometimes. But you will see your entire navigation on the site as well. So if you're looking to do much faster navigation, this is the way. And then, of course, you can really go as far down as the little arrows will let you go. But the reason I'm also moving on from that is to look into shared drives. So a lot of you are probably part of a shared drive, whether it's because of your PLCs, whether it's a campus shared drive, whether it's been for remote learning and planning and documents. There's many reasons, but you're probably part of at least one shared drive in the district. Is there anybody who is not part of a shared drive in the district? I don't see anybody saying no, but we're going to check. I'll tell you that. Let's check. So if you're following along with me, under My Drive, which is on the left, you're going to see a button that says Shared Drives. And under Shared Drives, you're going to see, again, a list, or if you have the other version, you're going to see squares of all of the different shared drives that you're in. If you don't see any, it's because you're not part of any. If you see some, it's because you're a member or you're an owner or you're an organizer, or there's different levels, but you're a part of a shared drive in some way, shape, or form. So, for example, let's look at, we can look at like Teach, for example. So what is the difference between a My Drive and a shared drive? So in My Drive is the storage place of the documents that either you have created or that somebody has given you access to, or you've moved from Shared with Me to My Drive. So what does that mean? It just means that you have a little bit of a different access to those files. Either you are the owner and you've given nobody permission to view your files. It's your own private container is the best way to put it. It is your own private container. And files, each file and folder has different sharing rights. Under a shared drive, which is, for example, I'm in on the shared drive called Teach. Under the shared drive, it is a container that multiple people have access to. So, for example, if you see this one, there's 11 people that have access to this one, and you can see that under the name of the shared drive, which is in the top middle. You'll see there's a button that says how many people have access to it. If you click on that, it'll tell you the people that are currently in that drive. And I'm sorry if you can hear the phone in the background. Again, I'm in an office. It'll tell you who's in there and what their roles are. And we'll talk about roles in a bit. But a shared drive essentially is a shared working collaborative space. So for example, if Misha and I and any one of you were in there, all of us would have the ability to manage those documents in the exact same way, shape, and form, based at least for the most part on the right. So if I created something, you would have the ability to edit it and delete it for me. Because in a shared drive, we all have that kind of content and structure. In a My Drive, you can be the owner of a file, and you can share it with somebody, but they cannot delete that for you. So there's a little bit of a difference between My Drive and shared drive. So if you notice here, I am, for example, the manager of this shared drive, which is the highest level. But there's also things like content manager, where you can add, edit, move, or delete files. You can be a contributor, a commenter, or a viewer. If you're a viewer or a commenter, you can really, it's exactly as it says. You can only view files or comment on files. You can't do anything aside from that. Yes, you could definitely use this to work on your lesson plans with teams. We know of a lot of people that use it in that format. And what was that second question, Misha? I lost it.
It says is a shared drive basically the same as OneDrive with multiple people can add to it?
Yes.
It's very similar. Yes. You just have to be careful with the deletion.
So yes, it's
and movement of items.
Correct. So it's very similar in that file and format where you can have where you can do the OneDrive or you can do the shared drive version of it. But yes, so if you wanted to create lesson plans as a team, you could create stuff in shared drive where more of you can collaborate, add different files and folders. Let me give one word of caution, aside from the deletion, is one of the things that we've noticed is that a lot of teachers have created a lot of like activities or stuff for Google Classroom in a shared drive. And then when they try and share out via Google Classroom, they're having some technical issues. And so a shared drive, let's say, for example, I create an activity in here and I meant to do it as an assignment for Google Classroom. If I try to attach it in Google Classroom, it'll let me attach it, but then when my kids try to access it, it's not going to let them. And the reason for that is because they're not part of your shared drive. So Google Classroom cannot automatically go in there, make the copies for all the students. The navigation is not the same. So if you are going to be working in a shared drive, make sure that once you get ready to make those assignments, that you make that assignment in your drive and not in the shared drive, because then you're going to run into some issues once you start assigning stuff. What is the benefits or preferences in terms of OneDrive and OneDrive and Google Drive? We've gotten that question.
To that.
Oh, good. So Misha's got it.
Yeah, I'll type the answer in there.
Perfect. So verbally, really, it comes down to security as well. It comes down to personal preference. If you're more of a Word, Excel, PowerPoint oriented person, you're probably going to choose OneDrive, even though I'm going to show you how to convert those files. But if a lot of your team is working on that type of file format and you don't want to spend the time to convert stuff, you can go with OneDrive. If you're more of a Google and obviously you're going to be working with Google Classroom a lot more, and you're more of that type of oriented person, then you're going to use Google Drive as well. The other thing is that a lot of our district, even though we do have access to it, a lot more people are familiar with Google Drive than they are with OneDrive. So it really, I guess it depends on your team. But benefits-wise, you still get the great level of security. Your files are still yours. They are still only shareable based on the rights that you select. The sharing is a lot easier in Google than it is in OneDrive. But again, that's just personal.
That's me.
Yeah. So there's I mean, both of them are great systems. It's whatever you prefer to use at the end of the day. That's the beauty of having access to both. It's whatever you feel more comfortable with. But benefits wise, you're good with either one.
Yes.
I got a question about which one, what the different roles or what the manager role gives you.
Yeah, what the manager role does.
So with the
Yes.
manager role, it allows you to manage the content, the people, and the settings. So it gives you the biggest access to that container. So if you wanted to, for example, you wanted to add and move members of a shared drive, you can do that. You can also remove people from a shared drive. You can remove all of the content in a shared drive, and you can also change the settings of that shared drive. So for example, if I wanted to be able to change all of the files in a shared drive to no longer accessible to the team, you can do that as a manager. You can basically have the highest level of settings. Versus content manager, which is the one right under it. Content manager is the highest level of settings to documents, which is add, remove, and move files, and then of course edit them. But that's basically the difference. Is content manager restricted to just working on the documents. Manager is open to working with the people and the documents and the settings of that specific drive. So if you create one, by default, you become the manager of a shared drive if you are the creator. I see a couple of other questions coming in here.
It just said why when you put your lesson on Google Classroom, some students need to access the lesson plan. I would say you would share lesson plans out with your principal using Google Drive, but in your Google Classroom, that's where you were going to give the assignments. So, and what Eric was referring to, and I apologize for cutting in here, Eric, but what we've seen in the past is, like, let's say I share out with my grade level, we share out all these documents in a shared Google Drive. Well, then I want to assign that to my students in Google Classroom. I can't assign it from the shared drive because they will not have access to those documents that we've all shared out and created for our students. So that's something to think about when you create a shared drive.
Yes, correct. So there's pros and cons, because a lot of things, obviously you could create something in your My Drive and share it out with the same amount of people. It's more about, like, again, convenience and security and what is easier. So if you are creating something to share out with your students, you would create that in My Drive. First and foremost, you would make sure you're in your drive. And then when you assign it to students, when you're actually creating the assignment, it's very crucial that when it's asking you, do you want to either make a copy for every student or have it viewable or editable by every student, that you choose the option at that point in time, because you cannot go back in time and change it. That's kind of one of the big pieces of Google Classroom when you're assigning content, is that you cannot go back in time. So if you chose, for example, all students can view a file, and then you try and go back and say, oh no, I meant to make a copy, you'll have to delete that assignment and reassign it with the correct settings, because there's no going back. And as Misha said, make sure you have a copy of whatever you're trying to assign in your My Drive instead of shared drive. So if you're following along with me verbally versus reviewing it, I've gone back to My Drive, because the next thing I'd like to show you is actually file conversions. Yes, you would need to make a copy of it from your file from the shared drive and then put it back in.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do,
I don't know if being in the shared drive, it's going to let you make a copy of it in the shared drive. I think you're going to have to.
It depends on your level of.
Yeah.
It depends on your level of permissions. If they've only given you the ability to edit files, but not move or delete, then you won't be able to move it out of your shared drive. If they've given you the ability to only do that, then you can download a file or copy paste everything into a file in your My Drive. It looks like that's been a pretty popular theme. Would you all like to see what that looks like, to kind of move something from shared drive into My Drive?
I think that would be a very good idea.
All right. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to go to My Drive, shared drive. Manager or creator can email it as well. Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to go here. I've gone to my shared drives, and I've gone to one of my specific shared drives that I'm a member of. And I'm going to go to one of the folders files here. I'm going to look for, probably should have gone to 2019. Hold on. I'm going to go to just any individual Google Doc that I find. I'm going to go to 2019. There should be some stuff in there. Okay. So there is a Google Docs file that I'm specifically looking at. If I right-click this file, you'll see that when I have the ability that says move to, I can only move it as far back. Oh, I can move it into my drive because I'm the manager. Let's try it. Yeah, okay. So again, so it depends on your settings. So in this particular container, I am the manager of the container, meaning I have the highest amount of rights. I am at least a content manager, if not a manager. So what that means is that I can move files in and out of my shared drive. So if I wanted to do that, I would first right-click on the file that I want, and I'm going to click the one that says make a copy. Why? Because I still want the people in the shared drive to have their copy. I still want that to be available to everybody. But I'm going to make a copy, and you'll notice at the bottom is telling me create a copy. And now I have one in the same shared drive that says copy of 2019 TNTC, which is a copy that I made, right? To not get confused, the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to go ahead and hit rename. Why? Because it's my copy, and I'm going to rename it to Eric's TNTC copy per se. And just hit OK. Now I've made the copy in the shared drive, right, of whatever I wanted. I've renamed it so I can make sure I'm going to move my copy out of there. And once again, I'm going to right-click on that file, and I'm going to move to. It's in the middle. If for whatever reason your move to is grayed out, or when you click move to, you can only go as far as right here, the name of the shared drive, it's because you don't have at least content manager access. It's because you have not been given the permission to move files in and out of that shared drive.
So what would be an alternative to that?
So if you were not to give that, I'll show that as a follow-up. But if you would not, there's a couple of things you can do. So right now I'm going to go ahead and show you. So if I just clicking the back arrow, I eventually make it to where I can see my drive and shared drives and all of that. I'm going to just put it in my drive, and I'm going to wait for it to load and move here. And then it's going to tell you everyone's going to lose access because you're moving it away. I'm going to hit move, and it's telling me at the bottom that bottom left, one item moved to my drive, and it's no longer here. Right. So if I go now to my drive, so I'm going to click on the top left to my drive, and I go find the individual file. There it is, Eric's TNTC copy. So now this is my copy. It's out of the shared drive. This is the copy that I would assign to my students in Google Classroom or work with independently. This is my copy now. If you do not have the permissions to move it all the way out, here's what you can do. You can go back to that document. So let me navigate back there into my shared drive. Okay, so now that I have this, there's two different things you can do. If you right-click it, you will have a button that says download. And you're thinking, okay, so I'm going to download it, then what? Once you download it, all you would do is re-upload it to your Google Drive. So I would download this file here. You notice I have a file now. And then I would go to my drive, and then new, and file upload, and I'm going to choose that exact file that should now be in my downloads. Somewhere in here somewhere. Where'd it go? Maybe it's not in my files. Let's see. It is in... Oh, it is in my downloads. Okay, so I'm going to do new, file upload. Oh, it has a number in front of it. So I'm going to go to downloads. There it is. Okay. 2019 TNTC points open. And so now on the bottom right, it's going to tell me that I'm uploading that same document. And you see it's now complete. It's been uploaded. So you can download from a shared drive and upload to yours, and it'll give you the exact same file. Which actually kind of works out, because if you notice, look at the file extension that it's downloaded in. It's docx, which most of you will recognize is a Microsoft Word document, right? So now you're thinking, wait a minute, I had a Google Docs created in Google, It's downloaded as a Microsoft Word document. Now, how do I get it back to Google Docs? Which was part of the reason you came to this training, is to do file conversion. So now you're thinking, okay, great. I have this file here, which I'm going to go find it in my drive because it should be, here it is, 2019 TNTC Talking Points. And if you notice, there's a little W here in the icon. That means it's a Word document. And we don't want it as a Word document because, one, if you assign it to students, they don't have Word on their Chromebooks or their personal computer, perhaps, so they're not going to be able to open it. And number two, even if they did, you're going to cause a lot of issues with them making a copy, and all of those features will not work very well. So we have a document, we've uploaded a docx, now we're going to convert it. We're going to right-click the document, whether it's Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. You can do this with any one of the three. We're going to right-click the document, the Word document, and you're going to go to Open With, which is the second option. And this list may not be as big for you. Basically, when I head over to my Open With, I have a lot, and that's because I have everything synced to my devices. May not be the same for you, but you will for sure have the option called Google Docs. I want you to click on that. And when it does that, what it's doing is it's taking this Word document and converting it to a Google Docs file. So if you look, here it is. Here is the file that we just opened. Now, you're thinking, oh, I'm done. I should be good to go now. I've got my file open. It's back in Google Docs like it was before. Not quite. There's one thing up here at the top. If you notice, it is still a Microsoft Word document. We don't want that yet. You want to do File, and you want to save as Google Docs. It is the fifth option. One more time, if you open a docx document, it opens up in Google Docs. You're not done yet. Your final step is to go to File on the top left and save as Google Docs. And so I'm going to do that now. And so now you've basically converted your Word file into a Google Docs file. The formatting, the images, the content itself moves over. Now, is Google perfect in translation? Not always. I will say that up front, that there are some times where formatting or tables might get a little moved depending on the formatting of that document, but their content will be there. And if there's just a little bit of structural changes you'll have to do, it's worth it to be able to have that content and not have to retype it out or create everything from scratch all over again. I think most of you will agree with me on that. And you can do this with Word documents. You can do this with Excel sheets. So if you have Excel sheets that you've created, you can recreate them. If you have PowerPoints that you've created, you can create them to Google Slides. Now, the question always comes is, can I put video and images and have them move over? And the answer is, unfortunately, those do not move over. Not very well, at least. Audio does not transfer into Google Slides. You would have to reattach it in Google Slides. And videos, if they're embedded using PowerPoint's YouTube embed, they do move over because it recognizes YouTube and YouTube. But if they're not embedded in that way, then it will not recognize it. So one more time, you can do this, and I'll show you what I mean, because what I'm going to do is, oh, you guys haven't even been able to see my tabs, have you? I just realized this. So sorry. So if you notice, this is the document that I opened. Up on the top, it's still telling me docx. Then you would hit File, Save as Google Docs. And so it's opened up another tab for me. I'm going to share this tab now. It's loading in. And so now up at the top, you will no longer see it as docx, right? Now it's a Google Docs. Did everybody get that, how to convert a file? Give me a thumbs up. I can see most of you in the web cameras. Awesome. Very good. So as I mentioned, you can do this with Word, you can do this with PowerPoint, and you can do this with Excel. What other types of files can you have in Google Drive? What else can we do? Now that we've talked a little bit about converting, and you can kind of get the hang of it as you practice. If you've been practicing with me, you can kind of do it in your own files and such. But you know, now that you have all your files, right? You started digitizing everything on your computer. You've started creating stuff, and now you're thinking, oh my God, now I have so many files or so many gigabytes worth of space. What is in my Google Drive, and how do I search it? So if everybody would click on my drive, if you're following along verbally, I clicked on my drive on the left-hand side. If you're looking at my screen, clicked on my drive, and now I'm back on the regular screen.
You need to change your tab again,
I
Mr.
just realized that. I just pressed the button.
And I wasn't watching before. I was actually getting back to an ITS teacher. I apologize.
No worries. So if you can see now, you're on my Google Drive. Up on the top here, you have the famous search and drive. Now, some of you will agree with me that sometimes when you search and drive, it's not the greatest feature. Sometimes you get a lot of files that you're thinking, what in the world is this? And how is this in any way relevant to what I just searched? I searched for pumpkin and I got apple. How is that relevant? So here's what you can do. If you notice, there's something called advanced search here at the bottom when you just click into the search and drive. I'm going to click on advanced search. So now you get a much bigger sharing or a searching feature. And we're going to walk through all of these because you'd be surprised how much power there is in this tiny little box that just showed up. So under type, you can search for, first of all, any file types if you don't remember what it is. If you know it's a picture or an image, you can search specifically under pictures and images. If you know it's a PDF specifically, you can select a PDF. If you know it's a document, whether that's Word or Google Docs or any other document type, it'll search for it. Whether it's a spreadsheet, whether it's presentations, forms, etc. Folder shortcuts, whatever you can think of, you can search for those different file types. Specifically, I'm going to search through my PDFs because I don't know what's in here. The next one is owner. So let's say you know it's not owned by you, that it was shared with you, but you don't know how easily you can share it, and you share it with me because you have tons of files that people have shared with you over time, right? You can tell it it's not owned by me, and I know it's, but I don't remember who it's owned by. But I know it's owned. I know it's not owned by me. Or if you do know who it was owned by, you can say, you know what? I know it's owned by this person. And I can say it's owned by M. Daniel per se, and I can tell it that it's owned by her. So I know it's been shared with me, and I know Misha owns it. I don't remember the name of it. I know it's a PDF, but I know Misha owns it. If you notice, you can say, you can even tell it to only look in a specific folder or location. If you notice location, it says anywhere right now. But you can tell it, I want it to look specifically in my drive only. Or specifically, I just want you to look into shared drives because it might be in there. Or it could be shared with me, or you can tell it to look in specific places. I'll just leave it as anywhere. I'm going to close the little X here. You can also even tell it to look in your trash. So if you're thinking, oh my God, did I delete a file, but I have so much in my trash? Let me look through my trash specifically and see, oh, I think it's in here. You can also look at start. So again, if we're talking about those projects, specific things or specific folders where you have your content. Date modified, this gets a little more specific. I don't tend to choose these very often, but if you know you edit it in the last 30 days and you know it has to be there, you can choose 30 days or 7 days or such. Now these right here, the item name that has the words, the shared with, and the follow-up are some of the most important little fields you can use to search through your stuff. Because when you put here up at the top, if you put a name, it doesn't necessarily search your files. It searches the content, it searches the titles, but it does not search the file. If you has the words, what it'll actually do is it'll search your Google Docs or your Microsoft Word files. It'll actually read your PDFs and look up your PDFs. It'll read through your PowerPoint or Google Slides. It'll read through anything that has what's known as text or OCR in the background content of it. So if I put here, it's a file, and I'm just going to say, I hope Misha shared something with me that has a PDF that has engaged me, because
I'm sure there probably is.
That's the keywords I'm going to use. And so I'm going to hit search now. I'm going to hope there's something in here. Otherwise, let's see here. It's searching now. If you look at the search results, okay, there's nothing. So I'm gonna try the word session. Let me see here. Oh, there's some other stuff in there. Okay, I'm not gonna put a keyword. I'm gonna use, I can use certificate. I know for sure Misha shared with me something called certificate. If you look up at the top here, look how much different your sharing rules or your search is now. The first thing is we have owner, we have :mdanielwise.net. So I'm telling it, I know that the owner is Misha. I'm telling it that I only want type PDFs, because remember we chose PDF, right? So I only want PDFs. And the keyword I'm telling it to look for is certificate. And so I'm going to perform this search function.
I think
there we go.
There it goes.
And so it may take a little bit of time because internet. And so see, now we have documents that are all owned by Misha Daniel. They are PDFs only, if you look at the little squares here. And they have the keyword certificate, whether it's in the title of them or it's in the actual thing. So I'm going to see, for example, this one has it right here in the title. I'm going to look at these right here. I'm going to click the little I. If any of you know of the I, it's top right. The I is the details. So this one also has the word certificate, but it also has the word certificate in the certificate itself. So it's doing what's called as OCR. But so you're thinking, wow, okay, that took a while. It doesn't have to, right? Because if you know at least some of the basics, now you can go in here. Now you can click advanced search, and now you can say, all right, I want to know what all of my PDFs are in my drive, and I want to know if it's owned by me. What have I uploaded into my drive? I know I uploaded a PDF at some point. I can search, and now I will get the owner. I know that I am the one who uploaded this PDF, and now I have all of my PDFs here in one easy to find location instead of having to search through my entire Google Drive. It's a lot faster and easier than having to search every file and folder, right? Y'all will agree with me on that. So now you're thinking, oh my goodness, what about if I'm teaching a class in Google Classroom and I want to find all of the documents taught by a specific kid or submitted by a specific kid rather, right? Because you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm teaching in Google Classroom. I finished a whole semester in a Google Classroom and I want to make sure that this student has completed all of their assignments. How in the world do I go through and check that? Well, now what you could do is you can go into advanced search. You can go instead of location, you can go instead of anywhere, you can click on into your drive. You can go find the classroom folder because all of you have a classroom folder. You can go click on whatever the name of your classroom is, right? I'm not sure which one of these has actual stuff submitted. I'm gonna choose this one because it's not my Google Classroom, but I'm pretty sure there's content in there. Okay, maybe it's empty. Okay, well, I'm going to choose a random class. I'm not sure which one of these actually has assignments since we usually teach our classes and don't necessarily have as much. So I'm going to choose new teacher inductions because I'm pretty sure there's submitted stuff in there. And so I'm just going to tell it to specifically look in this. This is the name of that Google Classroom. Now, for you all, it could be whatever the name of your Google Classroom is. For even this, just the instructional cycle, remote learning cycle that just ended. If you want to go back and say, okay, I want to archive or I want to look at my kid's work, if you are tasked with working on a showcase, getting things ready for parents-teacher conferences, X number of reasons, thank you, Misha, you can now tell it to look in this location. And under owner, you can tell it that it's owned by the specific student that you want. So if I want to know, has student, Misha Daniel turn, I'm not going to do Misha Daniel because I'm never going to find anything, but if I were to tell it I want something specifically by Misha Daniel, now in that Google Classroom, I'll have everything that was created by Misha Daniel. So I can go back and look at all of the assignments a student has had throughout that Google Classroom in a much faster location than having to go through the navigation and all of that. So there's power behind this. There's a little bit of power behind thinking of what you can do with those advanced searches. And even though it's not something you do every day, it might come in handy at some point in time. So in this 10 minutes that are left in the session, I'm going to show you a couple more things, and then we can go into question and answer as we kind of wrap up this specific training. So this is advanced sharing. Are there any questions with advanced sharing before I move on to kind of the final thing and we move into more questions and answers? Anybody, any other questions in the chat about this? If you archive something like a data tracker, can teachers go back and manipulate it? Absolutely. So when you archive something in Google Classroom per se, in your Google Drive, it doesn't archive. It stays in your files because it's not the same as what it looks like. So in Google Classroom, when you archive something, it oh my goodness, my Google turned on because I'm talking Google. When you archive something, it basically goes away from your view. It goes into a separate container where it's stored away, if you will. In Google, all it does is it just nothing. In your drive, it really just leaves the folder there, and it's there because it's accessible. So what it looks like really is if I go to my drive, and I have my classroom folder, here it is. It doesn't do anything in terms of the archival. It'll still show up your classroom here because those files and folders are still in that place. So absolutely, if you need to go back to your Google Classrooms and find something, modify it, or pick it up and make a copy of it so they can reuse it and continue it, or whatever the case may be, you absolutely have access to all of these files and folders. So like if I'm going to go to, like, for example, a new teacher induction folder, and it loads in at some point. Here we go. And I were to go see, like, these are all assignments. Like if I go to Nearpod Basics, and here are some, for example, here's a screenshot, and here's something somebody submitted. I can, if this is all archived already because this is last year's, but if you notice, my files and folders are still here to use and manipulate and do what is there. Is there any way to share a drive with someone outside of YISD? That's actually kind of my next and last point. Is one of the biggest things with Google Drive is where are we now as a district, and what can you do with your Google Drive? So currently, for all YISD employees, there was a change to Google Drive, which most of you saw, and some of you may have been very frustrated with, which is that you can no longer share files outside of the district. Before, you used to have a little button that said share a file with anybody with a link. Now you have a button that says you can share a link, but only within YISD. And the reason for that is because, unfortunately, we had a lot of oversharing in the district, and so that prompted the district to tighten that security up. However, there's a lot you can still do with that. You can still share it with your students. Parents can still log in with their student accounts. But in response to that specific question, can you share stuff outside of the district? Whether it's your drive or whether it's a shared drive, there is absolutely no way for you as a teacher to share things outside of the district. Everything is locked internally as of right now. We're hoping to go back to the way it was at one point and allow people to use that, anyone with the link outside of the district. It's just at this point in time that is not currently set into place. Only your campus ITSs have that for like websites and very important files. So that's currently where that is. All righty. We have about 7 minutes left in this training. Is there anything else that you all would like to see, Misha, that I'm missing, that you all would like to see in Google Drive overview?
I haven't seen anything. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in there, though, for them to get their certificate if
Perfect.
they fill out the form.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and just post that right now.
So if there's a link that Misha has posted, you can go ahead and go into that form. And what it'll do is it'll automatically, because you participated in this, you can get a certificate and a 1 hour credit for attending this Media Monday session. Misha has already been actively taking attendance in the background, so you won't have to worry about that at all. We will go in there and grant you your credit whenever we have an opportunity to do so. I do see a question here. It says, when I assign a document to my students in my Google Classroom and they submit their assignment, I see all their documents in my Google Drive unorganized. Is there a way to create a folder so their documents will go directly to that document, organized already without me having to do the work? So when you create assignments in Google Classroom, it does the following. So if y'all are looking at my screen, I'm going to go ahead and mention it verbally. I'm going to go into my Classroom folder in Google Drive. I'm going to go into, it's taking a little bit low. There we go. I'm going to go, when you click into Classroom, it gives you the name of every single one of the Google Classrooms you are either a owner of or you are a co-teacher in. So you will see those, you will see both of them, kind of everything mixed together. So I'm going to go into my specific one, which is the teacher induction. And when you click into there, you're going to see different things there. So I'm going to go into the list view so it's a little bit easier for everybody to see. It's taking a while now. Give it a second. There we go. So if you notice, you're going to see folders, and in some cases, you may even see file types. If you see file types outside of the folders, it's because there is some type of file that was created outside. It could be an assignment, like a form that was created within Google Classroom or outside of Google Classroom and just stored here. It could be for a couple of different reasons. But for the most part, you're going to see, yes, absolutely, we can repost the link to the YouTube channel. Not a problem. I think it's still, still had a copy.
Still back up there?
There it is.
There it is. That's for the innovative learning. That's where we're going to be posting everything.
You'll notice that all of these that you see here are assignments. Every single one of these folders that you see once you click into a Google Classroom, they're folders, they're assignments. You are also going to see one that says, for the most part, it's going to call templates, do not edit. And this templates folder is where anytime you create an assignment that has something called share with all students or make a copy for all students, the templates are housed in here. These is basically what this is a copy that every student gets. And so Google creates their own folder. Now, in regards to your question that all their files just kind of go into a folder, every one of their submissions should be going into a folder that's already been created for you by Google. So if you're called the assignment elementary level text quest, it'll create a folder for you so that when students submit, and I'm trying to load in here, come on. Students submit, everything is supposed to come in here. All of your different files are supposed to be organized in that way. You shouldn't have to be doing it manually, is it? Maybe there's something we can look into if you want to follow up with us separately. We can kind of do that. We can do that as well. Let me see here. I see a small icon with people next to some files. Yes. Oh, that's correct. It means that that file is shared. So what she's talking about is, and let me go here. If you're looking at my screen, if you're looking at my drive, you'll see that, for example, this classroom folder has no little person within the folder. And then this one, the Cybersecurity High School Resources, has a little person inside the folder. So the one that has no little person means it's private. It's only shared with me. If I were to right-click on it and show you the, come on. If I were to right-click on it and show you who has sharing permissions, it's going to say that only I have permissions. If you notice, it's only me. I am the only person. I am the owner of the file. But if I click on this one, come on. If I click on this one that has a little person, and if I click on share, you'll notice that several people will have access to, probably my boss. And yeah, so you'll see that they have whatever access they have into that. Can a PowerPoint personnel file be uploaded and converted to Google Slides? Absolutely, you can do that. Let me see if I have any PowerPoints in my MacBook. I might have a PowerPoint somewhere. Oh, I have a PowerPoint template. Okay, here we go. Where is this located? So what I'm going to do is just to show. I'll go ahead and show you how you can do the same with PowerPoint. I'm going to upload a PowerPoint that I have here. Assuming I can find it and it opens. Pretty sure I know where it is, but we are almost. I'm sorry?
You got about 1 minute.
Got it. Yeah, let me just show this PowerPoint here. We do have time for questions, so if you all do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will get to them. I'm just trying to find a specific file here. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn that off. My email. So my contact info, that's actually what I was going to do, is I'm going to actually stop presenting for just a second here. And now I'm going to present my entire screen here. It's going to look very small. Hang in there with me. Give me just a bit. So if you want my contact info before the end of the training, can you see that? Does that look at least somewhat big?
A little bit bigger. A little bit bigger.
How about now? Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that now.
Okay, that is my contact info. I, along with Misha, who's been the moderator, We work for the Innovative Learning Department here, Central Office. So whether it's myself or Misha, feel free to reach out to us, or Larry Snyder. Most of you know Larry Snyder as well, or Becky Calderon or Shelly Smallwood. We're all part of this awesome department. So if you all need help or have questions, even follow-ups, or even something you want to discuss privately or whatever it is, feel free to reach out to any one of us. We will be more than happy to help you out. We are here in our, well, we're virtually in our office Monday through Thursday from 7:30 to 5:30. So if you do need help at any point during that time, call or email. This is the bit.ly to our virtual office hours. So if you want to attend, our office, like if you want to walk into our office virtually, you can go to this link right here, and you'll be in our office. And there's somebody there now helping you out at any point in the day. What up, Miss Misha? Oh, the link for the badge again. Absolutely. Let me see. Okay, bnt.ly. Oh, hold on. bit.ly/YSD20. I just lost it again. YSD20 GT. Okay.
Yeah, it should be for Google Drive, GD.
So there is a link. That link right there is the one for the badges. So let me actually create a quick PowerPoint real quick, and I'll show you how to do that as well, because I know you wanted to see that, so I will definitely do that. I'm going to open my PowerPoint here. At some point in time. I'm going to just create a blank presentation, and I'm just going to add a title here. I'm going to say welcome. Oh, not for welcome. Welcome. I'm going to put my name here and today's date. And then I'm going to also add just another slide with, I'm just going to add a picture in here real quick, just so you can see that that also transfers out. So there we go. I now have a picture in there. So I'm going to save this PowerPoint, and I'm going to save it on my desktop so I don't lose it. Okay, so now I have a PowerPoint. This is a test.pptx, which is a full PowerPoint. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my Google Drive. So now I'm going to stop sharing real quick. I'm going to show you my actual window so you can see it a lot better. I'll stop presenting, and I'm going to present the Chrome tab. All right, you should be able to see my Google Drive now. Is that correct? Yes, okay. So I'm going to click New, and I'm going to do File Upload.
Actually, I don't think we can see your Google Drive.
Can you? Most people are saying, give me a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yep, most people are saying yes.
All
okay.
right, maybe it's just me.
So I'm going to go into my desktop, and I'm going to select on...
There it is.
I'm going to select test.pptx. That's the one I just created. I'm going to hit open. So at this point, what it's going to do, top of the bottom right, it's going to tell me that the file is uploading, and you'll notice it is a PPTX, so it's a PowerPoint file, right? And once the check mark is there, I can click on this little folder, bottom right, and it'll tell me exactly where it is in my drive, so you don't have to go hunt for it. It'll tell you, it'll redirect you there. So here it is. You right-click once the file is in there, and give it a second. It's going to, there we go. You're going to open with, and this time, because it's a PowerPoint, you're going to open with, and this time you're going to open with Google Slides, right? Because we're converting a PowerPoint into slides. So I'm going to share this tab instead now, and it should tell you it's loading in. So you'll see this little slides icon. Give it a second. And so now I have the slides. Now again, remember what I said even when I said about the docs. If you look up here, it still says PPTX, which means we're still looking at the PowerPoint file. That's just we're looking at it in Google. File, save as Google Slides. So I'm going to show this tab. So it's loading in here. So remember, you upload the file, step 1. Step 2, open with Google Slides. Step 3, file, save as Google Slides. And now that file, this test PowerPoint that I created, is now Google Slides, because remember, it doesn't tell you up here that it's a PPTX anymore. So now, and as you can see, the image carries through. It does say my welcome. It's still completely editable. I can still do stuff. I can still move the image around. Now this PowerPoint has become a slides. And so now you can use this as whatever you need. The same goes for Word as we saw it earlier with Docs, and the same goes with Sheets and Excel. So you can do the exact same thing. Alrighty, is there any other questions that I can answer for you all before we exit this session for the day? Doesn't look like there's any other questions. Thank you all so much. If you do have any questions, like I said, feel free to reach out to us. We are more than happy to help. Let me put this over here so that you all can see that here. Let me do a new slide and oh, there we go. So there is my info once again if you needed it. Other than that, I will go ahead and stop recording. And that's it for this training. Thank you all so much for attending. Make sure that you go get your certificate. If you haven't done so already, we will be doing these every Monday for the foreseeable future. So go on Eduphoria. You'll see it tagged with Mini Monday. Feel free to join as many as you would like. We are opening quite a few chairs as we see kind of, even with this one, it was maxed out at 75 and we had 100 and change registered. So make sure you all register for those and it'll help us more or less know how many seats to open. But other than that, I think that's it. Thank you all so much for joining me and Misha. Thank you to Misha for moderating. Y'all have a wonderful day.
All right.
Stop recording here.